Okay, we're going to have a quick run through of the key points about capital letters. Now, just because you might get away with texting without using capital letters or texting with using too many capital letters doesn't mean that's the correct way to do them in your 11 plus. You might also look around and spot some brands using them incorrectly. This is a stylistic choice. It's not correct English. So we're going to have a recap of the basics first of all. We always use capital letters at the beginning of a sentence. For example, once upon a time, there was a small red bear, needs a capital O. And we always use them when we're talking about ourselves. Yesterday, I went to the park, needs a capital letter because I am important. We also always use capital letters for names. That might be names of places or names of people. For example, my best friend is called Sophie. She gets a capital S. And in English, we also use capital letters for days of the week and months of the year. For example, on Friday, needs a capital F, and my birthday is in February, also needs a capital F. Hopefully, you use these in your writing every day, and they shouldn't be too much of a surprise. However, there are some trickier rules about capital letters too. We also always use a capital letter when we're talking about someone's nationality or a language. For example, I can speak English, French, Spanish and Arabic, needs a capital E, a capital F, a capital S and a capital A. You might notice these are all subjects that you could study at school. However, we only use the capital letter for school subjects if it is also a language. We don't usually put a capital letter for subjects like maths, geography or history. We also use capital letters for the titles of important works of art, such as books and films. For example, my favourite book is Harry Potter, needs quite a lot of extra capital letters. Harry and Potter you probably already noticed because it's a name. However, we also need to put a capital letter at the beginning of chamber and secrets. We don't, however, capitalise words like and, the, or of. These are considered common words that we don't usually capitalise when we're referring to the title of a book or a film. If you have a look on your bookcase, you might spot some other small words that are frequently not capitalised in the title. Up next, we've got the titles of people. For example, my teacher is called Mr. Sparks. Well, I already remembered my capital letter for his surname, but I also need it for the word Mr. The same rule applies for Mrs. and Miss. Finally, we might also need a capital letter for the title Doctor. So everyone in my village knows Dr. James. I've also got a capital letter, obviously, for her surname, James. However, we'll come to a tricky exception to this rule later on. Here are some common confusions. There are plenty of words in English that have both a capitalised and a non-capitalised version, and often the meaning is quite different, so it's important to get them right. When I talk about earth without a capital E, I mean earth in general, soil, the ground. We hit the tent pegs into the damp earth, doesn't need a capital. However, when I'm talking about the planet Earth, that very important place that we live, that's the name of a place. It does need a capital. One definitely not to get wrong. If I talk about Turkey with a lowercase t, I'm talking about the bird or the food, how long until the turkey is cooked. If it has a capital T, I'm talking about the country where I might want to go on holiday. So I definitely don't want to get those two mixed up. A little tricky one is whether God needs a capital G. Now, if you are referring to the Christian God, it does have a capital letter, and you might see that written down in some 11 plus texts, as they're often taken from older novels or poems. So God with a capital G is usually referring specifically to the singular Christian God. However, with a lowercase g, we can use it to talk about any number of gods. For example, in the ancient Greek or Roman mythology, the ancient Egyptian too. So Zeus is an example of a Greek god, needs a lowercase g. Up next, we have the difference between a river with a lowercase r. For example, we had a picnic by the river. I'm talking about the river, maybe in your village or town, any river. If I have a capital R, I'm talking about a particular one. For example, the River Thames needs a capital. The River Amazon or the River Nile would be the same. The same rule applies to specific geographical features such as mountains or lakes that would also need to have a capital. Up next is the exception to the word doctor. If you want to be a doctor when you grow up, or you want to talk about the doctors in general in your town, in your nearest hospital, it just has a lowercase d. The only time that it does have a capital is when I'm talking about a specific doctor with their name. For example, Dr. Cook, who has an excellent reputation. Here are 4 for you to try by yourself. You can pause the video and we'll go through the answers together when you unpause. Okay, we're going to have a look at the answers now. We are going to Brighton next June. Has the name of a place and the name of a month. It's missing the capital W, W, B and J. Up next, I visited the River Nile on my holiday to Egypt. Has the personal pronoun I. It has the name of a specific river and the name of a country. It's missing I, R, N and E. Next one, I have the name of a person and of a language. I'm missing capital M, M and G. And finally, many gods are worshipped in Hinduism is just missing the M at the beginning and the H at the end. We don't need a G because we're talking about the gods in general, of which there are many worshipped by Hindus. I do, however, need a capital H for Hinduism because it's the name of a religion. Similarly, for names of specific organisations would also have a capital here.